Ethan Holloway hadn't planned on returning to Black Ridge Village. The place carried too many memories, most of them soaked in shadows he'd spent years trying to forget. But when his younger brother, Michael, vanished without a trace 3 weeks ago, Ethan had no choice. Someone had to come back. Someone had to enter that house again. As he walked down the narrow dirt road leading to their old family home, Ethan sensed something wrong long before he reached the porch. It wasn't just the cold wind slipping between the trees, it was the feeling that the village itself was holding its breath, waiting. And then he saw it. The house looked the same, but the front door didn't. In Ethan's childhood, the door had been a battered brown wooden slab with rusted hinges and a brass handle that never stopped squeaking. But now, a smooth, perfect white door stood in its place. No handle. No peephole. No signs of use. Just a blank, pale surface that looked disturbingly new. Ethan touched it. Ice cold. Almost like skin. Without him pushing, the door opened slowly, as if the house itself had been expecting him. A wave of stale, unmoving air drifted out. He stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the door shut on its own, sealing him in. Ethan froze, listening. No wind. No footsteps. Only the faint echo of his breathing bouncing off the walls of the narrow hallway. Then he saw it. At the far end of the corridor. A second door, one he had never seen before. It hadn't been there. Not when he lived here. Not in any floor plan. Not in any memory. Ethan's heart thudded painfully in his chest. The door was black. Tall. Wrong in its proportions, too thin, too stretched, like someone had pulled it into shape rather than built it. And for a split second, he saw movement behind it. A shift. A shadow where there should have been none. "Michael," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "If you're in here, I'm not leaving without you." But deep inside the house, in a place beyond walls or rooms, something answered him. Not with words. Not with sound. But with a quiet, chilling certainty. The house knew he had returned. And it had been waiting. Ethan stood in the entryway longer than he meant to, steadying his breath as the strange black door at the end of the corridor loomed like a vertical shadow. The air inside the house felt heavier than he remembered, thicker, almost syrup-like, clinging to his skin. He took a few hesitant steps forward, each one causing the wooden floorboards to groan softly under his weight. The sound wasn't normal. It wasn't the casual creak of old timber. It felt responsive. As if the house was reacting to him being inside again. The walls had changed too. He remembered wallpaper with faded floral prints. But now the walls were bare, smooth, gray, and almost damp to the touch. A faint smell of mold drifted through the hall, mixed with something metallic he couldn't quite identify. Halfway down the corridor, Ethan stopped. He heard something. A whisper. So faint he almost mistook it for the wind, except there was no wind inside the house. It came from behind him. No, above him. No, inside the walls. Ethan. He froze. That was Michael's voice. Or something wearing Michael's voice. He turned sharply, expecting to see someone standing behind him, but there was nothing. Just the white front door and the stillness of a place that had no right to be alive. His pulse hammered in his ears as he forced himself to look toward the black door again. It was open. Just an inch. But it was open. He hadn't heard it move. He hadn't seen it shift. But its angle was unmistakable, an invitation, or a warning. A thin draft whispering from the crack carried with it a low, rhythmic sound. At first Ethan thought it was a heartbeat. Then he realized it was knocking. Knocking from somewhere behind the door. Slow. Deliberate. As if something on the other side knew exactly he was standing there. He swallowed hard and took a step back. The knocking stopped. Silence swallowed the hallway. Then, bang! A single violent slam rattled the door, shaking dust from the ceiling. Ethan stumbled backward, catching himself on the wall. His breath came in sharp bursts as he stared at the door, now completely still again, as if nothing had happened. "Michael," he whispered again, voice cracking. "If you can hear me, please, give me a real sign. Not this." The house answered with a different sound this time. From somewhere deeper inside, past the kitchen, past the old living room, something started to move. Slowly. Dragging. Scraping along the floor. The sound crept closer. Crawling, almost. Ethan took several steps back toward the front door, only to find it wasn't there. The white door had vanished. In its place was a tall, narrow archway leading to a different hallway entirely. A hallway he had never seen in this house before. The house was shifting. While he was watching. While he was breathing. Ethan whispered to himself, barely audible. "Oh God. Michael, what did you get trapped in?" And the dragging sound kept getting closer. Ethan forced himself to stay calm as the dragging sound faded into silence somewhere deep within the house. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the exit, whatever it used to be, was gone. The house wasn't just shifting randomly. It was rearranging itself around him. He reached into his backpack with shaking fingers and pulled out a folded, yellowed sheet of paper, the original house map, printed by his father decades ago during renovations. This map was supposed to show every room, every closet, every doorway in the house. As he held it under the dim beam of his phone's flashlight, Ethan felt a disturbing wave roll through his stomach. The layout he remembered, the entryway leading to the living room on the left and the staircase on the right, none of it existed anymore. According to the map, there should not be a hallway here. There definitely should not be a black door. And there was absolutely no version of the house where a hallway replaced the front door. Ethan lifted his eyes from the map. The hallway in front of him was now longer. Much longer. It stretched into a dark, narrowing perspective that hadn't been there seconds ago, bending slightly to the left like a corridor in a nightmare. A low hum vibrated through the floorboards. Not loud, more like the pulse of something enormous beneath him. Living. Listening. Ethan muttered, "This isn't possible." But the house disagreed. A soft click echoed behind him. He turned sharply. A new door had appeared on his right side. Small, wooden, scratched, and covered in what looked like old bite marks. He didn't dare touch it. Instead, he raised the flashlight and inspected the floor. The dust, untouched for years, now held a long trail of footprints. Not Michael's. These prints were too wide, the toes too long, the stride uneven and dragging, as if whatever made them was learning how to walk. The trail led directly to the new wooden door. Ethan stepped back slowly. His heart pounded so loudly he felt the thud in his throat. He whispered, "Michael, where are you in this place?" The house gave him an answer. The wooden door trembled, just once, and from behind it came a faint sound. A breath. But not human. Wet. Rattling. Hungry. Ethan tightened his grip on the flashlight. If the house kept changing this fast, he didn't know how much longer he would even recognize what reality was supposed to be. And somewhere behind one of these impossible doors, his brother was still waiting. Or something wearing his brother's voice was. Ethan didn't sleep. He couldn't. He had barricaded himself inside what used to be the living room, if the room could still be called that. The furniture was gone, the windows had turned into blank, sealed walls, and the air felt thick enough to chew. He kept the flashlight in his hand the entire time, aiming it at the only door in the room. Except, there wasn't just one door anymore. When he first entered the room, it had a single entrance. But after an hour of silence, something changed. The floor creaked. The walls shifted like they were exhaling. And then, out of nowhere, a second door appeared. Then a third. Then a fourth. All of them identical. All of them perfectly aligned along the same wall, each one evenly spaced like some twisted hallway of choices. Ethan swallowed hard. He wasn't hallucinating, he'd been staring at that wall the entire time. The house didn't wait for him to leave or blink. It wanted him to see the change. He approached cautiously, keeping the flashlight steady. Door 1, normal wooden surface, old and cracked. Door 2, newer, smoother, colder. Door 3, chipped paint, but no handle. Door 4, slightly open, breathing cold air from the gap. 4 doors, Ethan whispered. There used to be one. He unfolded the map again. It didn't help. The map said the living room had 2 exits, one to the hallway, one to the kitchen. But all around him were doors leading nowhere, or leading somewhere he did not want to imagine. He took a shaky step back. Then, a soft knock. Tap, tap, tap. From behind door 4, the one slightly ajar. Ethan froze. His throat clenched. The knocks weren't random. They were slow, deliberate, patient. Like whatever was behind the door knew exactly he was listening. "Michael?" Ethan called out, voice cracking. Silence. Then, a whisper rose from the gap under the door. Low. Wet. Children's laughter. But twisted, too fast, too layered, like 3 children laughing at once, but none of them truly human. Ethan stumbled backward until he hit the opposite wall. The whispers stopped. The house became still again. Then suddenly, all 4 doors slammed shut at the same time. The sound was so violent the dust shook from the ceiling. Ethan dropped his flashlight, heart thundering in his chest. When he picked it back up, there were now 5 doors. One more than before. Completely silent. Completely new. And on its surface, written in thin, smeared black charcoal, was a single word. Ethan. His name. He staggered backward, staring at it with dry, burning eyes. The house wasn't just moving its doors. It was learning him. Studying him. Calling him. And Michael had been here long enough for the house to learn his name first. The 5th door, the one with Ethan's name carved into it, stayed perfectly still. Too still. The kind of stillness that feels intentional, like something on the other side was holding its breath, listening, waiting for him to touch the handle. Ethan didn't. Not yet. Instead, he walked slowly toward the first door, the oldest looking one, with cracked wood and rusted hinges. If any door hid something Michael had seen before disappearing, it was this one. At least that's what Ethan tried to convince himself. The floor groaned under his steps. The air grew colder. The house didn't like his choice. He reached his hand toward the worn handle. His fingers trembled as they hovered just a few centimeters away. That's when he heard it. A faint shifting sound. Not from inside the room, but from inside the walls. Something moved, slowly, scraping against the wooden beams. As Ethan leaned closer to the first door, the scraping turned into a rise of pressure. Like whatever was inside the walls was sliding closer, pressing its weight against the timber, positioning itself right behind the door. Ethan whispered, "Michael, if you're there, I'm opening it." He turned the handle. The door creaked open. And the darkness inside the room wasn't normal. It wasn't empty. It felt dense, like thick smoke mixed with shadows, shifting with a life of its own. Ethan raised his flashlight. Something ducked. Not quickly. But deliberately. As if it didn't fear the light, it just didn't want him to see its face yet. The beam caught only fragments. The edge of a shoulder, too tall for a human. A hand, elongated, wrong, with too many joints. Skin, gray, stretched, thin enough for veins to pulse underneath. Ethan's breath hitched. The creature slowly stepped backward, deeper into the dark room, letting him see only a silhouette. A silhouette that began to change. Arms extending. Legs bending unnaturally. Spine pulling upward like something was puppeteering it from above. Then it spoke. Not in words. In a sound like dozens of bones cracking at the same time. Ethan stumbled back. The creature was mimicking movement. Learning him. Studying how he stood, how he breathed. It twisted its torso, copying his posture with horrifying accuracy. Ethan whispered, shaking, "What are you?" The creature tilted its head, imitating the angle he made. Then, from deep in its throat came a voice. Not its own. It was Michael's voice. Soft. Broken. Ethan's body froze. His brain screamed at him to run, to slam the door, to get away. But his feet wouldn't move. The creature took a slow step forward. The floorboards shuddered under its weight. Ethan forced his voice out. "Where is my brother?" The creature answered with Michael's voice again. But this time in a perfect imitation. Too perfect. "Here." Ethan's stomach dropped. Because the voice didn't come from the creature. It came from behind him. He spun around. The fifth door, the one with his name, was now slowly opening on its own. Ethan spun toward the fifth door as it opened wider, revealing nothing but thick, living darkness. The air turned colder, sharp, biting, like winter wind funneling out of the void. And then the voices began. Not one voice. Not two. Dozens. All whispering at once. All speaking his name. "Ethan. Ethan. Ethan, come inside." But the worst part. Some of the voices were familiar. His mother. His father. Friends long gone. And buried deep among them. Michael. Ethan stepped back, shaking his head violently. "No. No. You're not real. You're not my brother. You're none of them." The whispers stopped instantly. Silence. Then, a single childlike giggle echoed from the darkness behind the fifth door. Something small crawled forward. Not a creature. Not entirely. A human-sized shadow with too many arms, dragging itself like a broken puppet. Each limb moved at a different rhythm, jerking unnaturally. It stopped at the threshold. Didn't cross it. Didn't leave the dark. Its head tilted, slow and cracking. Then it spoke using Michael's perfect voice again. "We didn't want to hide from you. Ethan. You came too late." Ethan staggered back. "Where is he?" The shadow entity whispered. "Behind the last door." Then it melted backward into the darkness like ink dissolving in water. Ethan grabbed his flashlight. He had to choose a door. He had to move. The house wouldn't let him stay still forever. Ethan stepped out of the living room and back into the shifting hallway. Except it wasn't the same hallway. It was longer. Much longer. The wall stretched into darkness that his flashlight couldn't fully cut through. The floor looked warped, like it had been stretched by invisible hands. He checked his phone. No signal. Battery dropped 20% in seconds. The house was devouring more than space. It was devouring time. Ethan took a single step. The light flickered. The hallway elongated again, visibly, like a throat swallowing him deeper. Far ahead, a door appeared. Not one of the 5. A new door. Old metal. Rust dripping down like dried blood. On it, carved violently. "Don't open." Ethan whispered, "That means Michael did." He approached. As he did, the air thickened. The walls pulsed, breathing outward with each of his steps, then contracting slightly as if the house were inhaling him. He reached the metal door. Pressed his ear to it. Inside. Scratching. Fast, frantic, desperate scratching like nails, no, claws, dragging against metal. A voice whispered from inside. Soft. Terrified. "Ethan, help me." Michael's real voice. Not mimicked. Not distorted. Real. Ethan's breath choked. He reached for the handle. And the hallway behind him slammed shut, turning into a solid wall. There was no way back. Only forward. Ethan gripped the rusted handle and pulled. The metal groaned, resisting at first. Then it ripped open with a tearing screech. Inside was nothing like he expected. A tiny room. Bare. Cold. Concrete walls stained black. No windows. And in the center. A chair. A single metal chair. Leather straps hung from it, torn clean through as if something far too strong had broken free. On the floor beneath the chair. A dark smear of dried blood. And beside it, Michael's backpack. Ethan's body locked. He dropped to his knees, grabbing it, opening it with frantic hands. Inside. Michael's phone, shattered. A flashlight. A crumpled note. Ethan unfolded the note. His brother's handwriting, messy, rushed, terrified. "Ethan, do not trust the voices. The house changes every night. The doors move because it's hungry. If you hear me calling, it's not me. If you see me, run." Ethan's heart froze mid-beat. Behind him. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then. Slow, heavy breathing filled the doorway behind him. Not human breathing. Lower. Wetter. Hungrier. Ethan turned. A tall figure stood in the doorway. Too tall. Its spine hunched. Its ribs visible through paper-thin skin. Its head tilted slowly. And it had Michael's face. Stretched. Wrong. Smiling too wide. "Ethan," it whispered. "We can go home now." Ethan stumbled back. "This isn't you." The creature blinked. And in a perfect, emotionless imitation of Michael's voice. "It is now." Ethan ran. The creature followed. Not fast. But steady. As if it knew the house would trap Ethan no matter where he went. The hallway changed with every turn. Doors appeared, vanished, stretched, shrank. Some opened into walls. Some opened into void. And then, the floor vanished beneath Ethan. He fell. Hard. Onto cold stone. He looked up. He wasn't in the house anymore. Not exactly. He stood inside an enormous cavernous chamber carved directly beneath it. Shifting walls. Organic shapes. Like the inside of something alive. The chamber was a mouth. The doors above weren't doors. They were teeth. The house wasn't haunted. It was a creature. Feeding on anyone who entered. Shifting its rooms to confuse prey. Mimicking voices to lure them deeper. Ethan whispered, horrified. "Oh God." Michael was never lost in the house. He was eaten by it. The ground trembled. The mimic creature, wearing Michael's face, dropped into the chamber too. It cracked its neck sideways. "You're next, Ethan." The creature lunged. Ethan dodged, scrambling across the fleshy ground of the living chamber. The walls pulsed, closing in, trying to swallow him whole. Far across the chamber, Ethan saw it. A door. A single, glowing white door. Unlike the others. Untouched. Pure. The only exit the creature didn't want him to reach. Michael's real voice echoed in Ethan's memory. "If you see me, run." Ethan did. The creature screeched, sprinting across the chamber on all fours, bones snapping and reforming with every movement. Ethan reached the door. Grabbed the handle. And pulled. Light exploded outward. A force hurled him backward. Upward. Through the collapsing house. And suddenly, he was outside. Night air. Cold wind. Grass beneath him. The house behind him folded in on itself like a dying animal, its doors slamming shut one by one before sinking into the ground. Gone. Ethan lay on the dirt, breathing hard. The nightmare was over. Until he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Michael stood there. Or something that looked exactly like him. Smiling too wide. "Ethan, you didn't think the house would let us leave alone, did you?" Fade to black.